Are you a fan of the No Dishes podcast? Be sure to check out our Patreon, where you can find exclusive merch and perks, and join the Clean Plate Club, our Facebook group where you can connect with other fans of the No Dishes podcast, share your favorite moments from the most recent episodes, and submit questions for upcoming guests. Season 4 of the No Dishes podcast is brought to you by VisitBloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurants and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at visitbloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town. One thing I love about doing this podcast is I'm always surprised by the characters that come on. I'll have an idea of who's coming on and kind of what they're like, but once I actually get to sit down and talk with them, I'm always kind of blown away about their stories and just how unique they are and how lucky we are to have all these characters in Bloomington in our restaurant scene. Lew Cook from FARM, he's our guest on this episode, and he's been all over the place. He has worked at Mother Bears, the Bluebird. He's got story after story after story. He's been involved with WTIU shows. He's Bloomington in so many ways. I had so much fun sitting down and talking with him. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. No dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine, relax and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
All right, we're here with our guest this week. It is Lew Cook, the front of house manager at FARM. That's the correct title definition.
Yep, sure.
Also, just local legend, been around quite a bit. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure. We've been talking for a
Hello,
while.
Bloomington.
I was, you saw me walking across from CVS with my paper towels and toilet paper and came out just to be like, yeah, we're still good. I was like, yeah, we're good, man. I'm excited. You're excited.
It was the day before your birthday because you had celebrated a birthday yesterday, didn't you?
I did.
And you were out having a nice meal at Elm.
Yeah. That was the day you saw me. We did that Saturday night.
Oh, okay, because I saw the picture.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was really, really good. It's a lot to be grateful for this year. And it was nice hanging out. Yeah, Garrett was there with his lovely wife, and it was like a 3.5 hour dinner.
I saw a lot of smiling faces. It was a nice group shot, so everyone seemed to be really content. So
yeah, and I was telling them, it's so nice when you have friends that have never met each other. And like, I could sit there and no one could even talk to me, and I would just enjoy watching them get to know each other, interact, because you like to think you keep good company. And then so to see people that I've never met get to know each other and shoot the shit and talk, it's really enjoyable. But yeah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I know you've been around the block, done some things, and there's a lot to unpack, and I want to know more about the man, because as much as we run into each other and chat about stuff, I don't think we've ever gone into your history, why you are who you are, all the jobs you've had, the things you've done. Let's just start at the beginning. Okay. I kind of like that, where you're from and kind of growing up.
I was born in Michigan City, Indiana, in Long Beach. We lived in a Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. house that nice. Lincoln logs were actually invented in the attic. And Ann Baxter used to act in little things in our before. So the act, pardon me. Yeah.
Lincoln logs were invented in the attic of the house you
that
grew
I
up
lived
in.
Yes. Well, I lived in Michigan City. It was a Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. house.
Okay.
And Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. invented Lincoln logs, and it was done in the attic of the house I lived in when I was about 5 years old.
Interesting. That's kind of cool.
It was before my time, obviously. There weren't like Lincoln logs laying around everywhere or anything like that. But I had Lincoln logs.
I was going to say, was that part of the deal when you bought the house? Unlimited supply?
I was a baby at the time, Jordan. I have no idea what the deal was. But then I always heard about Ann Baxter this and Ann Baxter that. So over the summer, I was watching All About Eve with my mother, and my mom's like, Ann Baxter, da-da-da. And I said, what is this connection with Ann Baxter in this house?
Well, I don't even know who Ann Baxter is.
Ann Baxter is, if you've not seen the film All About Eve, she's Eve. So she's this actress who's trying to like come into the world.
Okay.
And she comes across as very sweet, but she's very conniving and very manipulative. And it's a masterpiece film. Joseph L. Mankiewicz wrote the screenplay. It's one of the greatest screenplays of all time.
When did that come out?
1940, maybe 1950, 1951.
Okay.
George Sanders, Betty Davis, saved Betty Davis's career. A very young Marilyn Monroe is in it.
Interesting.
One of her first roles. She's terrific in it. It's an excellent film.
So yeah, what was the connection with Ann Baxter to your house?
The thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. was her uncle. So she was born in Michigan City. So she would come visit her uncle and act like these little plays and stuff in the house.
Oh.
Yeah. I never no, of course that was way before my time, but I always heard about Ann Baxter this. And I was like, what?
Well, that's a lot of history for a random house in Michigan City that you just happen to grow up in.
Absolutely. So I lived there for 5 years. And then,
you answered my question. Yeah, how long were you there for? And then where'd you
Dad moved, Dad got transferred and moved to York, Pennsylvania, which is near Gettysburg and Hanover. And then we ended up buying a colonial farmhouse built in 1740 in a little town called East Berlin, Pennsylvania. It's right next to the Conewago Creek, which is really a river. And I lived on about 20 acres of colonial farmland, and we had like barns and pig sheds and wild strawberries, and next to a baseball field and a stream running through it, and it was rather idyllic. I had an idyllic childhood.
That sounds awesome. My friends gave me so much crap because leaving Book of Mormon from the IU auditorium the other night, it was like raining really hard, and the Jordan River or whatever was like really roaring and like running, and I like
was it 2 feet deep?
Yeah, no, but you know what for like for what it normally is, it was like pretty high and like really kind of ripping, and it just like I went to go get a video of it, and I just like loved watching it. It reminded me of how much I loved and was grateful for growing up with a creek in my backyard.
Absolutely.
And it just like, man, and I've seen a couple like houses when I was driving up in Indy the other day, and it was just seeing the creeks, and like that would be such a big selling point for me whenever I bought a house, especially if I had kids, to have a creek. Because like the amount of times I would spend playing in it and like building dams, like trying to force the water over this way.
Absolutely.
That's anyway. I'm glad.
You got to experience that too. There's endless adventures when you're living next to a creek or a body of water like that.
Yeah.
Endless adventures.
Well, yeah, you can just go stay entertained, and
if you get frustrated, I always go skip rocks. Like skipping, like I got to be really adept at
Isn't that like a phrase, like go like to tell someone to go skip rocks, or am I just making that up?
Did you ever go and like hunt crawdads or like tadpoles or anything like that?
He's like,
I don't know, Michigan City. Maybe it's too cold.
You grew up next to a creek.
Maybe it's too cold up there for
we didn't have any of those in my creek. They're like, but
no, we had crawdads, all that stuff.
Yeah. You make them battle each other,
No,
you didn't do that.
Maybe I don't know. That was a while ago.
We'll cut that.
It's like, what did you do as a kid?
We just ate them. We cooked them.
Yeah.
We never did. Yeah. We were too scared. I think we did cook them, but we didn't too scared. I think my dad got mad. So like, what a waste. I think crawdads are great now. We've done crawfish boils at the farm before.
They're incredible. Yeah. That's how they got Joe Burrow to go to LSU.
Really?
Yeah, he went. He was on a visit because he was transferred from Ohio State, and Coach Ed Orgeron, whatever. They go out to some place, and Joe Burrow, like, Ed's like, Coach's like, yeah, like, I can't do his accent. It's a great accent though. Like, what looks good? What are you gonna get? He's like, well, I was hoping to have crawdads. We're in Baton Rouge. He's like, you want crawdads? I'll get you crawdads because there weren't any on the menu. And Ed Orgeron like has a crawdad guy, calls him up. Next thing you know, within 30 minutes, this guy's showing up with like a 10-pound bag of live crawdads. They cook him up, and he's like, all right, I'm going here. Next thing you know, they get a national championship and one of the best college quarterback seasons of all time. Yeah. Fun fact.
That's a good one. I've never heard that story. And I like me some crawdads.
Yeah, that's the way to go. So how old were you when you left Pennsylvania, or did you have any?
I left there and graduated from high school in 1983.
Did you have any restaurant experience in high school at all?
Nope.
Did you have any jobs at all? Or
I worked for a gunsmith. I worked for a guy named Stan who made flintlock rifles. And I would.
What's a flintlock rifle?
Flintlock rifle is pre-percussion cap, so you would have to have like Revolutionary War stuff.
Oh, huh.
So he would take a block of wood, carve it down, put the barrel in. You have the mechanisms. You put the flintlock in, cap it back. You got to put gunpowder in. You got to put gunpowder down the barrel. You set the ball, ramrod.
Okay, so we're like talking Mel Gibson's The Patriot.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So he had Stan was a master gunsmith, and he would make colonial era rifles for people all over the world.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
So I would work in his shop, and he was trying to train me. I was not very good at that, but I was pleasant to the customers and good at sweeping up sawdust and
So shop hand, kind of.
yeah, taking out the trash, all that stuff.
Okay, and then where'd you head off to college?
I went to Holy Cross Junior College because I had hopes to go to Notre Dame, being a good Irish Catholic kid, and that didn't work out. So then I transferred.
Being a good Irish Catholic kid or going to Notre Dame?
Both. Good one. So then I ended up going to IOSB, and then I got transferred to IU.
IUSB, what's that?
IU
South Bend?
And University of South Bend. Yeah.
All right, cool.
And then ended up in Bloomington. And it was...
What year are we talking?
85, 86.
Okay, and when you came down to
I'm
IU?
young for my age. Thank you.
I like it. Yeah, that was good. I appreciated that.
So when I came into Bloomington, they do those little tours. It was, I just thought Bloomington was a magical place because there was a couple of downtown movie theaters. I grew up in a town of 1,200 people. We didn't have a movie theater.
Oh, this is the big city.
There was arcades, there was comic book shops, there was all kinds of downtown businesses. There was back then there was the Ben Franklin and all the supermarkets and all these things, and I just thought it was just a magical place, and my head was just spinning. I just fell in love with it the first day.
There was a supermarket called the Ben Franklin?
There was a Ben Franklin, which was there used to be a national chain. I don't think they're around anymore. They were downtown, but like where the bakehouse was, so they would have like a lunch counter in there, and they would sell candy and they would sell dry goods, and it was a national chain. As a matter of fact, I went to college with the guy who's a complete jerk. I'm not even going to dignify his name, whose grandfather owned Ben Franklin.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, I went to college with Ben Franklin.
No.
Yeah.
Friend Junior, that is. So, this guy was, I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah, you're good.
He was
No
always like pulling up his pants like, yeah, my grandfather.
Yeah, we don't want to slander anybody that you knew in the 80s.
No. But yeah, he just, whatever.
So yeah, you came down for IU,
and just
fell in love with Bloomington.
The greatest.
What'd you go to school for?
I was starting out as telecom, and then I realized that wasn't for me, so I ended up going to English, switching to English because I'm a writer.
Well, did you do any jobs at all while you were in school?
Well, after I was kicked out of IU for not doing things I should have been. I mean, I just screwed around. Just screwed around. Just not being focused.
So I dropped out. I can't. Yeah.
So I needed to find this. I knew this was gonna, and so that's what I was ready for this because I was reflecting upon this whole journey of mine. So then I ended up needing a job. I was 20 years old, and I got hired at no longer around, very famous Chinese restaurant called Lung Chung, run by a gentleman named Beaumont Hung. And it was a Hong Kong-based family business. It's where the Ken Nunn office used to be downtown.
Where's that at?
It's now where the People's State Bank loan, next to that, whatever that is over there. But there used to be a brick Ken Nunn office.
Is that like 4th and College?
Yes. And so Lung Chung so this family had a Chinese restaurant in Hong Kong, Hawaii, and Bloomington. And it was considered the best.
Out.
Yeah, it had run by Beaumont.
They say Bloomington's the London of the Midwest. So
it is. I never heard that before.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I hear it all the time.
I love that. Yes. So I went there and I got hired as a busser, as a busboy, as we
20 years old.
20 years old. And Beaumont was so scared of my energy that he put me in the dish pit. Now, the dish pit.
Did he have a conversation with you, or like?
Yeah, I got hired as a busser, and then he got scared. So he just thought I was just a little bit too wild. So he put me in the kitchen, and
away from the guests.
Yeah, away from the guests. And I'd never, here you go in, it's like a Friday night and if you've never worked a dish machine before, the water is actually incredibly hot.
Yeah.
You don't realize because everything has to be sanitary.
We were talking about that in my ServSafe class today. If you can sanitize without any like quat sanitizer, but it's got to be 171 degrees.
I was going to say,
I got that right on the test.
I was going to say it's about 170, so that's
Nice.
rather hot water, and you got your apron on and everyone's screaming and you're like, what did I get myself into? So I was very humbled by that experience, but I learned a lot about Chinese food because growing up, Chinese food came out of a can. We didn't have any Chinese food in our little town, and I didn't know anything about it and didn't know anything about the culture and being around people that work 60, 70 hours a week.
Right. So I've never seen, really quick, sorry to derail you. I've never seen canned Chinese food. What kind of
Le Choi? Le Choi used to do canned Chinese food?
No, I mean...
Yeah.
Are we talking like...
So they would have like a chicken chop suey kind
They
of stuff?
still do it. Yeah.
Really?
It's still there. Yeah.
I don't go to the grocery store. That's the whole reason this podcast
So they would have
exists.
a meat in a can.
No
There'd be two
groceries.
cans. There'd be two cans with the gravy and the vegetables at the bottom and the meat on top, and then you would heat it and throw it all together. And then
Put on
if you
some
would buy
rice.
the noodles, the dry noodles, you'd put it on top to make it crunchy.
Oh, okay.
Or just like, ramen.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I know ramen, but I was thinking
We had ramen.
I'm
but we
thinking
didn't
like
have.
canned General Tso's or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, they would have this. I don't know if they must still do maybe something.
I've got an app on my phone instead of Instacart. It's No Cart. That was a bad one. All right.
That's okay. Keep on trying.
Miss 100% of the
Don't
shots
ever give up.
you don't
Yeah,
take.
exactly. Don't ever.
So
Definitely.
anyway, what did you learn about Chinese food while you're there?
So I just was just like, wow, this place had just the lemon chicken, and they would do the.
Was it a buffet at all, or just
No.
service?
It was just
okay.
it was a high end. They had a bar. It was a high end Chinese restaurant, and all the hoi polloi came there, and the food was excellent. They're known for their lemon chicken. They're known for everything. It was all excellent. And I fell in love with it. I'm so grateful I started out as the back of the house because it really taught me how to get along with people and what hard work is and what cleaning is.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I made a huge mistake, and it was, I didn't have anything to do. And I made the mistake of turning to the boss and saying, "Hey, Beaumont, I don't have anything to do." And he goes, "Really?" And he leads me into the walk-in. And the walk-in is a refrigerator, and they're huge. It's filled with all the vegetables, all the proteins. He said, "Take everything out, scrub this whole thing down, and put it back in." I said, "Oh, I got this." And I walked in, and I don't have any idea what's going on because there's vegetables there I'm not familiar with. There's obviously some kind of system there.
Right.
I should have taken a pen and a piece of paper and written everything down. So I brought everything out, cleaned it as best I could. I was too slow, mopped it too slow. I was just overwhelmed. And then I put everything away incorrectly. And at that day was the most valuable restaurant lesson, which is find something to do. Don't ask the boss owner that you don't have anything to do.
Yeah,
Because that's a can of worms.
I'm going to give you a little credit there and say it's kind of on him to just leave you to it and give no instruction about how to put things back. Or, I don't know, especially if you're younger, it's your first restaurant job. But so what was his reaction when he came to the walk-in?
He was disgusted. He was really.
He couldn't
was
look at you?
Yeah, he gave me the stink eye. But
did you get in any trouble, or he just?
No, I didn't get any trouble.
Just,
I mean, how could he? He just kind of gruffly restacked and put it all away because he had a system. And
did he give you the old "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed" line?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long did you end up working there?
I was there for 9 months.
Okay, all right. So now you're almost 21, or you're 21.
Yeah, and then
why'd you leave?
I got back into IU.
Oh, no. Okay, so you said I'm going to go back.
I got back into IU, and when I left, Beaumont shed some tears because he really liked where I was coming from. He just knew I was a hard worker and had a good attitude, and I was dependable and stuff.
Well, it sounds like you grew a lot as a person.
I did
in those time.
Absolutely. And the one thing I'll never forget that also, so around Christmas, he gave us all smoked turkeys. He had a buddy who smoked turkeys, smoked proteins, gave us all smoked turkeys. And I was going to donate it to a local charity because I felt badly because there's some people out there still struggling you know, and I thought, hey, I'll make somebody's life a little bit nicer with this frozen turkey.
Yeah.
And I smoked frozen turkey, and I told my parents, and my mother was like, Leo Dolph Cook, you are bringing that smoked turkey home for your family. And for years, we always had smoked turkey on my mother's groaning board. So at my parents' house, we have this thing, instead of cooking on Christmas Day, we just put out cheeses and crackers and all kinds of things to munch on each day instead of having a sit-down meal. We call it a groaning board, fresh pineapple, that kind of stuff. And we always had the smoked turkey was always kind of the centerpiece.
And what do you call it? A what board?
Groaning board.
Groaning. Because I like grazing makes it like a grazing board.
My mom just, groan. I don't know. It's what we call, I don't know. It's mom. You'd have to ask her. It's just.
Or like, you're like,
it's the groaning board. That's the only thing it's been called is the groaning board.
Or like, you remember you got to make dinner and you groan. And it's like, I'll just do this instead.
I think it's the weight of it, the groan.
Yeah.
But it's been that way. So I in Beaumont created this family tradition for years and years and years that we always had a smoked turkey on Thanksgiving because of that. So
interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
So so you get back into school. Do you have any jobs while you're back in school? Did you end up?
Not really. Not that I recall.
Yeah.
And then
did you end up graduating?
No, I couldn't pass a math course.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll
I
get
just
you.
couldn't. And I used to be really hard on myself on that, and then my mother and I had a long talk about it one time, but it's fine.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Here's why. I'm a writer. Okay, so I work in restaurants to keep my bills paid.
Yeah.
I like being warm. I like cable television. I like to go on trips. I like to have folding cash.
I like to have a life.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I do affords to have this, and then I do have some free time that I can pursue my career. So I have a job, a job, and then I also have a career. Career is my writing. My job pays my bills. And so even if I would have gotten that sheepskin, I still would be pursuing my writing career and my show business career because that's who I am. So I don't need that because you don't need that.
Is it David Foster Wallace that did that? Like, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, like that quote. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's like, Garrett's looking it up.
Okay.
But it's like the same. Like, if you're a creative and you're getting judged by a math test, of course, like it's going to make you not look good. You got anything, Garrett? No. David Foster Wallace. If you judge a fish by I know he had it in a speech. Judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
I have heard that as now I'm starting to.
I swear I'm not making this up. It's a real thing. And if he's not the one that came up with it, he had like a famous speech that included it. I
don't think it's not coming up immediately.
You're making me look bad, I promise.
David Foster Wallace fish quote.
Yeah.
There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys."
You're like, nothing with a tree.
I'm stumped.
Hey, I like it.
Tree segue.
First time we've had a guest make a great / terrible pun before I did. I'm happy about it.
Well, there you go. Mark this up at first. Thank you.
What about fish? I'm sorry to totally derail this. Here we go. Fish ability to climb a tree. The quotation-based meaning often touch on education. Oh, it was Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Anyway, David Foster Wallace has that in a speech, but Einstein.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, no, but that's what it made me think of. Like, you're a writer, you're creative. Of course, like math might not be your thing.
It's not my forte. I wish I was good at it, but I just don't. I do the basics. Basics are fine.
Yeah.
But algebra and all that stuff, it's not my bag. It's
yeah.
just not I just don't.
Certain people need it for the real world, but some people don't.
So yeah, I turned out all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was when you couldn't pass the math test? Sorry to phrase it like that. When you're done with college, what was your next move there?
I started working at Mother Bear's as a waiter.
Now we're talking.
So I ended up getting a server job at Mother Bear's.
What year we're talking now? How old are you?
Oh my God, I'm 23,
right
24.
Okay, and you get on as
3rd Street.
Yeah, all right.
Mother Mo Bears.
Did they have the Munchie Madness deal back then?
No, they did not.
I had a feeling that might be a little newer.
They didn't, but they used to do the lunch special with the soft drink and the slice and the salad and all that stuff. And that was a good gig. You know, there was some server jobs back in Bloomington, but Bloomington was a lot smaller. It didn't have the kind of restaurant scene it did now.
Right.
So that was a pretty plum job, you know, because you're just, you know, selling beer and pizzas and breadsticks and salad and lasagna. And,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
what were some of your first like realizations serving instead of doing bussing and dish and back of house? Because that was your first front of house, right?
yeah, it was first front of house. Well, I learned to be prepared in a way. Everyone wants red pepper flakes and Parmesan cheese, and I would put them in either my pants or my pouch.
I was hoping you made little holsters for them.
I tried to, because I would. All right, so I'll go with. All right,
Quick
so
as-
instead, I would have. Now I would have. There's no question. I would have had a tool belt or something. So invariably, people want those two objects,
right.
And so instead of waiting to ask somebody,
Yeah.
I would have them on me. So when there would be that pause, I would whip them out and
Boom. Preemptive.
boom, right
yeah.
there. And also I learned if somebody's having a soft drink and if it's less than a half, you bring them a refill. You don't ask them if they want a refill.
Yeah.
You bring them a refill. Okay. And little things like that I picked up that save me steps, but
Right.
also level of service that people really appreciate. If we had we would put on goldfish crackers as the croutons for the salad. And if I saw there was a young family with kids, I would bring them a small wooden bowl of these goldfish crackers because mom and dad want to sit there and have peace for a little bit. Kids want to come in. They're immediately hungry. They need some kind of gratification. You put that bowl of goldfish crackers down. It gives something for the kids to do. And then mom and dad can talk.
Absolutely. Well,
And
that's
it was
the
a
difference.
huge move.
Difference between a good server and a great server is anticipating needs.
Uh-huh.
So that's awesome that you picked that up so quickly because I know people that have waited tables for years and still haven't.
Yeah, I
figured
know.
that
Well,
out.
it was just like, to me, it was obvious.
Yeah.
And I would try to show people like, hey, why don't you? And they would be like, so you would get pushback from people.
Right.
Jealous of you. And like, there's nothing to be jealous
Yeah, yeah.
about. Like, I'm not trying to I have all the answers, but these have proven to be very good.
Yeah, you're just trying to help out. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have no
just
skin
trying to-
you have no skin in the game if they do that or not. It doesn't affect you.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted, it's just being kind and being like, level of service.
Was serving in the 80s as tip reliant as it is now?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And back then, I did a lot of lunches, and I think that meal there was $3.25 or something like that. So you're hustling for 50 cent, 75-cent tips for all
Yeah.
the music school kids and who are good. A lot of them are really kind, but some of them can be really pretentious.
I mean,
And-
that goes with the whole student body still to this
Yeah,
day. There's
yeah.
some awesome students. I mean,
Absolutely, and there are ones that are just-
any group of people.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
shitty ones, there's
But
good
yes,
ones.
but
yeah.
I was, it taught me a lot of resiliency. And, back then you're making, make X amount of dollars a night. I was happy, really happy with what I do. It was hard work though. You'd have to be there at, 9 or 10, brew the tea, stock the ice,
Right.
salad dressings, all that stuff, clean everything down. But, I was done by 4 or 5 and usually had a nice chunk of change or work on
and
weekends.
have the night off.
And have the night off.
That's
and-
nice. Back in that day, was that a thing to where you accidentally brewed tea with the nozzle flipped? Because that's like a rite of passage now. Because I did it once at O'Char. Once you do it once, you never do it again. But you you hit brew, and you go to start doing all the other opening stuff, and you come back.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
on
yeah.
the floor.
No, I don't think we had that system.
Okay,
But
all
yeah,
right.
I know it's,
I was just curious if you ran into that because that's always
I don't remember
hilarious
that
when you
one.
see it because it happens to everybody, and then
Or-
after that you start looking forward to seeing other people do it.
The one I have experienced is when you're draining it into a pitcher and you get called away because somebody needs something,
Oh,
and
you
you come
forget.
back and
Yeah.
the pitcher's overflowing on the floor, and it's like, and then you got to make more iced tea.
That's fun. You just got to hope that it happens when you don't have a lot of tables, so you have time to clean
But
up.
invariably, no matter how much time you think you have something, somebody always needs you for something.
Right.
Whether
Yeah.
it's the phone needs to be answered, or there's a mistake, or so you have to help somebody else, another server out, or a manager who's asking you a question about something. You have to. The interesting thing about the restaurant business, which I kind of like about show business, is you kind of have to be on.
Yeah.
You have to have spider sense awareness. You just really have to anticipate. It's more than just anticipation. You really have to be aware of
Yeah.
everything around
Well-
you at any given time.
And the main thing I've always said that separates a good server from a great server is that is reading your table because every table has a different idea of what great service is.
Absolutely.
Some want to be left alone. Some want to be chatted up.
Mm-hmm.
So, they all have little things. And I imagine show business, every director, they all have different ideas of what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's figuring that out and then doing that. So yeah, I could definitely see the correlation between the two.
Sometimes you want to take the lead. Other times you listen to what the director wants.
Right.
You can't overdo it, can't underdo it. If somebody wants a steak, bring them a steak knife instead of the steak comes out and they say, "Can I get a steak knife?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Preparation.
Absolutely.
Being a TV producer, I'm prepared. You guys are prepared. You have to be prepared. Yeah. It's because things happen all the time that you have no unforeseen circumstances. And if you're prepared, you can kind of roll through it.
Right. Well, and when you do it enough and you start to notice, man, I'm always having to go get this. Why don't I just preemptively do it?
Yeah, it saves you so much.
Back what was Mother Bear's main competition back then? Because I think Pizza X opened in the 80s.
Yeah, but that was Mother Bear's was a dine-in restaurant. I mean, they did delivery and they would do dine-in, and that was they did a huge dine-in business and they did a solid delivery business. But Pizza Express back then was they had a few stores. They did quite well.
I didn't know if there was like that the battle back then of what's the best pizza in Bloomington, you know what I mean, like, or if it was just like hands down it's Mother Bear's.
I mean, Pizza Express had the best breadsticks, hands down. Their breadsticks are, Jeff Meese ships breadsticks all over the country to people that graduated. You know that?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, Meese, because they want their breadsticks when they were 18, 19.
Hey, it makes sense.
They want that familiar flavor, and that their cheese sauces, the Cape one.
Oh, I know.
It's the
just
best.
the spicy nacho cheese.
Oh, it's so good, and they have they have their loyal following, as Ray has his own with Mother Bear's.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how long did you end up staying at Mother Bear's?
I was at Mother Bear's for about 2.5 years, and then my sister wanted me to come to Virginia Beach and work there. So I ended up going there and worked for a year, and that really changed things because now I'm working on another level. I'm working on a beachside restaurant. We have a 3-way license, which means alcohol, beer, and wine. So you have to learn all that sort of thing. A lot more faster pace. You're doing 700-800 people, sometimes 1,000 people a day. It's a deck, so it's just it's facing the ocean. It was big. I came back from there and really learned a lot. I really grew a lot and learned a lot.
I'd imagine being on the beach was like seafood.
We did that, but then we would serve prime rib special all the time.
There you go.
It was all kinds of stuff.
Why'd you only stay out there a year?
I wanted to be back in Bloomington, and I came back, and I ended up, to tell you a little sad story, I came back here, and one of my best friends was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor, and I got to, later on, but I got to spend about one last summer with one of my best friends of all time. His name was John Hugh Klingen, and I spent that summer, and then that fall he got diagnosed with inoperable brain tumor. It just lived a few more months after that. But I got to hang out with one of my best friends for a summer, and I'm so grateful that I came back, and how would I know that was going to happen to him? So
because you came back before you found that out. So that definitely.
So I came back, and then I got a job at a pizza place managing Pizza Papa John's. I was like a shift manager.
Okay,
and that wasn't for me. But that was my first dipping my toe into management.
It sounds like your first corporate job too.
Yeah. And it was not for me at that stage of the game. I've been a restaurant manager on and off for years, but that was my first one, and it just wasn't for me.
Right.
It was
how long did you end up sticking it out?
6-7 months.
Right. But you want to be back in Bloomington. You're going to find something.
Yeah. And so from there, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. I'm awful at remembering back very far and what the timeline was.
Oh yeah. Then I got a job at a Chinese restaurant called The Walk, which I ended up managing.
I'm noticing a trend of pizza and Chinese.
And then there was a Japanese place at this woman who I'm not going to say her name because she's so then she had a sushi place, so I'm like working at both places. So I was the manager at the one and the assistant manager at the other. By the way, no car, and
just getting your steps in.
I'm getting my steps in. I'm working 60-70 hours a week, and that was tough.
When you said you got the job at the Chinese place, then became a manager, did you go on as a server? And
I started out as a server, And then they hired me as the manager, and then she opened up a sushi place.
Yeah.
So I was shuttled back and forth.
Well, I'm saying
both
you must have been killing it serving tables if they're like, hey, we want to move you up to management.
Well, the other manager had some
more of a
he had some bad habits, and that's about all I'm going to say. He was a nice guy, but I didn't know that he was had some bad habits.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the timing worked out for you.
Yeah. So then back and forth doing all that stuff.
So you end
and
up getting burnt out on doing all that.
I just didn't want. I just was like, this is ridiculous. This is just absolutely ridiculous.
And at one point through all of this, when you're either at Mother Bears or Virginia Beach, are you having that kind of like, what's my end goal? What am I trying to do with my life? Like, I know I want to write.
Well, I never gave up the goal of being in show business and working for that. So it was just an ends to a means. You know what I mean? When you work in the business, you will always be fed. You will always make some money. You'll always meet people. You always, it gives you something to do because, people need a purpose. You got to get out of bed in the morning, brush your teeth, bathe, and then what are you going to do for the rest of your day?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so the restaurant business provides that along with then you find, and then when you start understanding that, you can organize your time a little bit better. I always try to say, tell my servers, like when you get up, like my experience, when I get up, I literally plan my day around when I have to be at work.
Of course. Yeah.
But some people don't feel that way.
Well, everything else is flexible.
Yeah.
But
I have to, like, I get up and I go, all right, I'm going to do this. I got to get this. I got to get this. And then I got to be at work at 1:00 or whenever I'm needed.
Right.
And so I got to get into what I can do in my own personal life and then go into my work life.
And that's just, not everybody seems to.
They don't have that priority. And that's why maybe, I'm not here to judge people.
Yeah, no, of course.
But you have to, it's how I do it.
Yeah.
That's how I've been doing it for a long time.
So when did showbiz start? So you're doing all these restaurant jobs. Are you on the side trying to find show business stuff to do, or are things reaching out to you?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll talk to you about a very famous thing I created off camera. I just don't want to. It's a sore point. So
okay.
I started performing when I was a little kid. Like I was always picked out of school to do stuff. And then, I'm not an actor, I'm a performer. There's a difference. I usually I only write and perform my own material. So the first thing I ever did was 3rd grade. I tried to do a recreation of the Battle of Gettysburg. And I learned a very valuable mistake. I spent more time on my prop rock than I did on the script.
but the rock looked good.
The rock looked good. And the story I had was riddled with historical inaccuracies.
Yeah, well, at least
a lot of people don't know that. Abraham Lincoln fought at the Battle of Gettysburg?
Yeah,
well, I didn't know that, but at the time in the script, he was a patriot. He was a real hero.
Charge.
He was gangbusters.
Well, at least when the dialogue wasn't keeping them entertained, they could at least watch The Rock.
Not much of dialogue when you're in 3rd grade. You know what I mean? A lot of improvisation. So
yeah, it's
but
like,
that was the first.
No, the South is attacking. Yeah. It's like, whose mom's brought Capri Suns? That's what you're thinking about in 3rd grade.
So that was the beginning of like all this stuff. Like, wow, this is all. And then in high school, a bunch of my buddies, we would write and film all this stuff after school, and it just was like, this is when I'm like 14 or 15 years old. I'm just doing all stuff. And I'm like, this is the only thing I want to do with my life.
Yeah. So
it's literally.
But while you're doing all these things, college doesn't work out. You're doing Mother Bears. You're in Virginia Beach. You're coming back. You're managing Chinese restaurants, Papa John's. Are you doing?
Well, I'm performing in like, I at this time, I knew people that were in bands and stuff at the Bluebird. Yeah. So I would come on stage, doing stuff with them, doing goofy stuff. I'm asked to MC things.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm doing radio stuff.
So you're still pursuing that stuff.
I'm still working on this stuff. Yeah. I'm still having fun with it. But, there were some things I did really well, and there's some other things I didn't do well. And I had to, I had a lot to learn because of the writing process, you have moments where you go, wow, that was really good. And there's other things you're like, what is this pile of junk that I just wrote that I thought was really good? And you go back a week or so later, you're like, oh my God, it's awful.
Yeah, I've had that on some food reviews.
So it's the whole process where I'm still learning. And I'm still learning now.
Right.
I'm just getting a lot better at it.
Yeah, it never ends.
It never ends.
If you think it ends, then something's wrong.
I was just working on a script for 2 hours this morning before
Nice.
It's a Joan of Arc script.
What let's go back to where we were in the timeline where you're managing the sushi place, the Chinese restaurant. You kind of get burnt out doing those.
Yeah. So then I decided I wanted to be a bartender.
Okay.
Because I was tired of dealing with children and elderly people. I like children and I like elderly people.
There's a lot of similarities, but
yes, there is. And I just said, you know what? I just want to deal with adults.
Okay.
That's all I want to deal with. So I ended up getting a job as a Applebee's was opening up in Bloomington. Now, see, I was the head bartender at IU for about a year.
Do it like, what do you mean at IU?
Well, Indiana University had a catering, so IU catering.
So doing events.
So I do events, but I was the head person.
Okay, and you were moved into that without having, just because of your management experience, because you had no bartending.
And I mean, the guy that was the person that was kind of running that left for the summer, and I wasn't trying to be the usurper. It just kind of happened that way.
Yeah, so another timing thing.
I had free time, and they said the guy that I was working for said, "Hey, I want you the lead guy."
Nice.
And I said, "Okay."
And like you said, your time in Virginia Beach, you got experience with liquor on top of the beer and wine.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would do little private catering events for people where I would put ads in the paper and people would hire me.
Oh.
And I would go to people's houses and do that kind of
stuff.
I
love, like, obviously, I haven't had an official bartending job for almost 9 years now, but I still love, every now and then I'll do a wedding or work on New Year's Eve. Private bartending gigs are the shit. There's no other way to put it.
I love it. And I did that for a while in Virginia Beach as well. And then I came back to Bloomington. So you did this. Yeah, And then Applebee's opened up. Now Applebee's by the mall.
Yeah.
They had they had a corporate restaurant downtown Texas Road. No, not Texas Road. What was the ribs place? There's one in Martinsville.
There's the Texas. Chili's.
No. This is anyways. I don't. It was over here by
a ribs chain.
Yeah, it's like a ribs chain. It was a barbecue chain. They went belly up.
Martinsville has a ripoff Texas Roadhouse. It's called like Texas Corral.
All right, no, this is not that. It's another. Anyways, I can't remember. But they were kind of big like 20, 30 years ago. But so I went over there and interviewed because I was like, listen, I'm going to California. I'm like going for it. I'm either going to California. I'm going to give it one last attempt in Bloomington. And so I ended up not getting. They're like, I want a job as a bartender. Well, we can get you a job as a server. I said, I'm not really interested in that. Fine. And I'm like, all right, looking at myself. I'm like, well, what can I take and I'm not going to take to go to California? And the Applebee's started hiring. And so I went to go work for my friend Tom Ross. And I didn't know Tom at the time, but they were doing the interviews at the mall. And Tom used to work at Cracker Barrel for a long time. And he's a great guy. And he said, so tell me, so you'll be a bartender. And you seem like you know stuff here and there. And I said, yeah. He goes, well, tell me a joke, Mr. Bartender. And I'm like, I'm a wit, right? And so I make up stuff. But that time I don't really have a lot of prepared jokes. And I was like, oh, okay. What did the grapes say when it fell off the Empire State Building? Nothing. It just let out a little whine. And he goes, that's good. He goes, that's good. That's good. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So they hired me. And so
I love that as a question for a bartender interview. Because you're doing so much more than making drinks, all that. Like, you're entertaining.
I'd say bartending is 40% drinks, 60% service, and whatever.
Yeah, developing regulars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I got the job, and I had 2 weeks of corporate training, which was awesome.
Local?
The guy was the national.
Well, you did the training.
Yeah, I did the training. I did the training here, and I'm really grateful because you just, a lot of bartenders, in my experience, haven't been any kind of training at all. They might have been training by their peers, but they didn't have to go this legit, because at Applebee's you have to make a Manhattan, a martini, then you got to make a sundae for a kid or a frozen ice cream drink, and just all these other
mud
stuff,
slides, all that,
Bahama Mamas, and so.
That's interesting. I got my bartending training at O'Charlie's, but we didn't have sweet vermouth, so we couldn't make a Manhattan. Yeah.
Really?
This is 2011.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. Anyway, they've upped their game. They do, nice cocktails now, but Applebee's back in the 80s, we're probably early 90s now.
Yeah. So this is, because they've been around for like 27, 28 years.
Yeah. Was it at the same spot where it is?
Yeah. I was there. I opened that store.
Huh.
I was there from the
Do you ever go
Roundup.
back in there and just start like looking at all the kids working there and be like, do you guys
I
do you
did.
know who
I did.
I am?
I went. Nobody knows me, but I did when I won the Food Network National Drink Contest about 10, 12 years ago. I walked in there kind of.
Yeah, a little swagger going on.
Well, because I created a bunch of stuff that went national for Applebee's, the strawberry lemonade. They took some of the frozen ice cream drinks I created, some of the sundae ideas, like the malts and some of that stuff. And then around Christmas time, I would do mix the green and red sugar, like the cookie sugar together. And I would sprinkle that on whipped cream as a garnish for shakes, or margaritas. I would put it as a rim of a glass or a daiquiri. And they would just be like, holy. So I got no credit for any of this stuff. And so they asked me one time, one of the kitchen masters, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, well, I want to be Dr. Drink, who is the person that creates all the national drink cocktails and all that stuff. And she laughed in my face.
Oh, okay.
And I was really like, "Urgh."
Yeah, that pissed me off.
So then, yeah, it hurt my feelings because I said, but you're using all these ideas I came up with. Why wouldn't I aspire to something much larger than this? And so when I won the Food Network National Drink Contest, I was like, well, I was right.
And that was while you were at Applebee's or later?
No, that happened when I was at the Bluebird, but I was at Applebee's like 27, 28 years ago. So
yeah. How long did you end up staying
I was
there?
at Applebee's for about 2 years, and I just said, this isn't.
Once they laughed in your face, you're like,
Well, that's what I was like, you know what, really? This is insulting. Like, come on. This is, I'm good at this. Everyone here knows I'm good at this. Why wouldn't I want that type of position?
Of
that
course,
kind of
probably had your fair share of discounted riblets, and you're like, okay, time to move on.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So then I ended up working for Denny Stalter at the Trojan Horse, and then from Denny,
awesome.
And I loved that place, and the great double cheeseburger still is, still great organization.
Ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah, and still great gyros. Really still like the place. They've been around for over 40 years, I believe.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
right?
Now, Denny sold Michael Shelley and his wife. And
good guy.
They've been
They're trying. Boy, they've been doing everything they can to keep that place chugging along.
Yeah, I know.
It's challenging. You know, Jordan. It's really challenging.
Well, obviously, I live right next door to them, so I see him all the time, and he's putting in the hours.
Yeah,
she is too. They both are. Yeah.
So they're doing everything they can to keep that train rolling.
Yeah. Were you bartending at Trojo?
Yes, and then from there I went to the Uptown, and then from there I worked for Michael for 2 years, and then Michael had a place by the mall, and I got transferred there to help manage it with Stratz.
When you were working at Uptown, was it its old location or the new one?
Well, it was the one that's been there for a long time. The old location was next to Bluebird, the Doo-Wop Diner, when it was where it's the pizza place.
Yeah, Rockets. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I guess that timing makes sense. I couldn't remember when they moved down to where they're currently at. So what was the place he opened by the mall? What type of place was that at?
That was kind of an extension of the Uptown, and then it was Stratz and Michael and Ray from Mother Bears, and then
did they call it the East Town?
Well, it was called the Bistro 1131 or something like that, because it was the address, and I didn't at that time understand why they didn't call it the Uptown Bistro, to cross pollinate the whole thing, to kind of And I worked on the menu with that, and I worked with Stratz really closely on that, and we finally got the whole thing fine tuned. And
so you're
you're
in a management role?
I'm in a management role, but I also was creating pizzas, creating entrees. I mean, I was working on the menu, doing all kinds of stuff, and I really was proud of my work there. That was something that I said, well, I really have my imprimatur on this. I really can put my stamp on this. And then ended up closing on my birthday on graduation Saturday.
Oh, how long did it stay open?
They're open over a year. They'd gone through. We finally got on the third concept. They did a first concept, didn't work out so well. Went to a second concept. There are some good things that came out of the second concept. Then the third concept, we really got it down, and we were really starting to make the money, but we had lost so much money in the first two things that the third one just couldn't save the day.
Man, and to do it on graduation when you really
could. And it was my birthday. I mean,
you're like, forget graduation, it's my birthday.
And I went home and laid on my bed. I was crushed.
Did you just go back to working at Uptown Cafe?
No, I didn't. I think.
I'm loving this. You've got so many. It's like you're checking off so many places in town.
I ended up going to the City Grill, working for the Carl family.
Yeah,
from
before
Yogi.
it was
So Jim and
Yogi's,
Chris. So Jim and Chris Carl, Bonnie.
And that's
so
over
I worked for
there.
them.
That's across from Atlas, right? Where
Yes. And that was a
KRC
huge
catering
place.
used to
That
be?
place sat like 300, and they wanted, smoked meats and all kinds of stuff. And they had a neat idea. It just was just kind of it just didn't, I don't know.
Right.
They gave it a shot. They did everything they could to make it work. It just didn't work.
Did you work with Glass there?
No. Glass was over at Yogi's at that time. Still
Oh, okay.
was,
I
yeah.
got you.
I was over there, and then I ended up at the Bluebird because. So one night I was. I'd enter Chocolate Fest every year, right? So I'd enter Chocolate Fest, and I'd get, which is Life Designs, and I would get the little postcard. Hey, if you want to continue, would you like to financially support?
Life Designs was doing the chocolate thing that long ago.
Yeah.
Oh man, because we do that every year with them now and have for years. But
we can talk about that another time. But no, I was with Life Designs for 11 years as a board member and fundraiser and all that stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I wasn't,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but this is before all that. So I had this postcard. And it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Here I'm a showbiz guy, and that's not really working out for me. And at the moment, and my mother worked with kids with disabilities when I was a child, and had a profound impact on my life because nobody chooses to be born with a disability. And so I just said, I'm going to start. And I started like 4th or 5th grade trying to improve the quality of people with disabilities' lives. And then, so I'm looking at this postcard. I'm like, what am I? And I thought, they were doing all these shows at the Bluebird about, tribute shows. And I thought, well, no one's ever done a tribute show to Hank Williams. And at this point, I know all these musicians. So I went to Life Designs. My name's Leo Cook. My mother worked with people with disabilities, and I want to put on a show at the Bluebird. Now, they had just done a show at the Buskirk Chumley that did not go really well, and they had all this team of people, and it didn't go as well as they planned. And I said, I'll do everything. I'll do the booking. I'll do the promotions. I'll do everything. And I booked like all these bands, and everybody quit on me like a week or 2 before the show. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was humiliating, but I managed to cobble together and said, hey, could you do this? Could you do this? And I managed to put together. My good friend Tom Rosnowski ended up helping me out. Big John ended up helping me out. My friend Steve Woods, who's no longer around, he passed away a few years ago. Steve, missed you, Woodsy. He ended up putting together a bluegrass thing, and it ended up being like, so I did it on a Thursday night. We did over 200 people that night. It was the busiest Thursday night they had over the summer. And Patrick Kelly, who was the bar manager at the time, said, you really did a good job. I just want to say, for somebody that never did this before, cool. I said, well, I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I said, by the way, I heard you're looking for a bartender. And they said, yeah, we are. Would you work for us? I said, are you kidding me? It's the only job I've ever wanted in Bloomington. So
yeah, bartender at the Bird.
Bartender at the Bluebird. So I ended up working for Cube for 11 years there. And during that time there, that's when I won the national drink contest.
Well, I want to dive into some of the people that played at the Bluebird, the national drink contest, but let's do a quick break.
Okay.
And then because I feel like there's a lot to get to there, and we'll do that right after.
We'll be right back.
Introducing Constellation Stage and Screen, Bloomington's newest professional theater and film company. On stage next, Constellation presents Death Trap this January and February at the Ted Jones Playhouse. Now extended through February 19th due to high demand. Holding the record for the longest-running comedic thriller on Broadway, Death Trap is filled with twists and turns in a series of shocking events that'll keep you on the edge of your seat until the very last moment. See Death Trap on stage January 26th through February 19th in downtown Bloomington. Find tickets at constellation.org. Many of you know the first 3 seasons of this podcast were recorded at my place in the Uptown Apartments. After 2.5 years of living there and at least 6 more months to go, I can't speak highly enough about my experience with Deer Park Management. Their pricing is incredibly reasonable, the office staff is always really pleasant, and my maintenance requests have always been taken care of quickly. They have a ton of properties across Bloomington, and we can't thank them enough for sponsoring this podcast. Check them out at deerparkmgmt.com and let them know Jordan sent you. Did you know the Chocolate Mousse has a second Bloomington location? Located next to Buffalo's on Indiana Avenue, not only can you find our famous homemade ice cream, but we also have a full coffee menu featuring locally roasted Brown County coffee and delicious vegan and gluten-free treats from our friends at Rainbow Bakery. Skip the line and order ahead at moosebtown.com 7 days a week. Open early at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. It's the perfect early morning stop, midday pick-me-up, or late night snack. All right, we're back with Leo Cook. We're going to dive into his time at the Bluebird. So you spent 10 years there. Give us the years here. Kind of keep us going on this timeline.
Oh, Lord. It's probably the early 2000s.
Okay, yeah. Going
Something
into the
around in
2010
there.
teens.
The Bird was a real happening place. Coop really does a good job of booking all kinds of people. You know, things come in waves. At one point, there was a lot of hip hop shows, so we would get Bone Thugs would come in there. We had every living member of Wu-Tang had played in there.
Amazing. I've seen Yin Yang and Ja Rule there, and both were incredible.
Yeah, we had one of the guys from the Beastie Boys DJ'd one night. He was pushing one of his energy drink things.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
We had Bright Eyes. We had Ween came in.
Okay.
Hank the Third came in one night. Now, I had met Hank the Third about a year before in Indianapolis, and we had a long conversation. And I said, "Hey, Hank, you know, if you play the Bluebird or you play Bloomington, can I sit in with you? I play the washboard, electric washboard. It's a novelty thing." And he goes, "Yeah, you can play with me, of course." So he's coming there that night, and nobody believes me that Hank and I are friends. Because we had a great I knew that he would remember me because we had a great conversation about old school country and how Johnny and releasing some of the best records of his career. He's not getting any radio play. George Jones is doing all this great material. Nobody's, it's just not, nobody cares about these older country artists anymore. And he just thinks it's terrible. And I think it's terrible. And so the sound man is there and he doesn't believe that I'm going to play. Coop's there. He doesn't believe I'm going to play. And I'm like, so I'm waiting there after sound check. I'm there for about an hour and a half. And I walk up and I said, "Hey, Hank, pardon me. I met you about a year ago. I'm the washboard guy." He goes, "I remember you." And I said, can I sit in on a song? He goes, "Of course, the Southbound Old 97. I said, "Okay." So I'm waiting in the crowd, HBO's there. I didn't know HBO was there going to be filming that night. And all of a sudden, "Hey, where's the washboard guy?" And I'm holding the washboard up over my head. The place is sold out. I'm like, and I go on stage, and everyone is just, they're just beaming at me. They can't believe
they're like,
that
"You gotta be
I
shitting
hornswoggled my way on stage with my washboard to play with Hank the Third." And so he starts a song, and I came in a half a beat early, and he just turned to me, and I was like, he gave me the look that if I came in half a beat earlier again, this boot was going up my can and I was going off the stage and there was no getting around it. So I got, and I did the thing and I left to thunderous applause. It was
hell yeah,
one of the greatest moments of my life because it's that full circle of doing the tribute show for the people with disabilities for his grandfather.
Gets you the job.
And then helps me play with Hank the Third on stage. And there was a recording that night, which I gave to Big John, who gave it to Hank the Third, who gave it to Kid Rock.
Wow.
So Kid Rock listened to my music while he was fooling around with Pamela Anderson. Slam dunk, boom, boom,
There's
boom.
your 6 degrees of separation.
Amazing how much
Anderson.
that one thing changed my life.
Yeah.
Got me back into show business, got me a job, and I helped, I continue to help people with disability, just tremendous help for me.
I love that too. You have like almost like a movie script where like you have the coming in a half beat early. You have the like, "Oh no, I'm screwing it all up." And then it's like you get the redemption, you get the comeback.
Oh, it was I was so happy I was sick to my stomach. Because you're just so, the tension, you're like, "I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened." And nobody believed me. But guess what? Well, because
no, until it happened.
And I'm like, why would I make that up?
So yeah, you probably had a little bit.
So
more,
what happened was there was a show in Indy, and it was it Royal Crescent Mob and Reverend Horton Heat and Hank the Third. I only went up there to say Hank Third, and we were bowling beforehand with my friends, and like, "So Leo, you're going to meet Hank the Third tonight?" I said, "Boys, girls, I'm meeting Hank the Third." "Well, how are you going to do that?" I said, "I have no idea.
You're going to figure it out."
I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So after Hank plays, I'm wandering through Broad Ripple, and I'm like, "That bar is not for me. That bar is for me." And there's a place called Average Joe's. I said, "Well, I'm an average Joe." Not really. So I plunk myself down there, and there's this bartender, and he's got all these secretary types, and he's watching the Austin Powers, and he's explaining all the jokes to these women. And at one point, he explains a joke, and he's wrong about the reference, and I'm sitting there, and I'm embarrassed for the guy. I'm like, "Really, dude?" And I'm about to get up and leave, And Hank comes in and sits right next to me at this bar. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I leave him alone. I leave him alone because you just got out of rehab. I'm not saying squat. And I waited till his girl, who's like wearing the 1950s rockabilly, wearing the cutie pie dress and stuff. Are you allowed to say cutie pie anymore in this day and age? Anyway, so she's got the rockabilly. She looks like $1 million. She gets up to go to the bathroom, and that's when I swing my chair around and go, brother, I've been waiting to talk to you all night.
That's a bold move to come in with.
I just saw your show, and he wanted me to talk about what the show. And I remember this Buddy Rich. There's a very famous Buddy Rich thing where he's on a tape where he's being recorded where he talks about how bad the kids played that night. This clam, and here's a clam, and a clam here. Clam is a mistake that a musician makes, and that's what they say. Hey, you effing clam.
So was he asking you what you thought?
He was asking me what I thought about the band that night, and I said, well, the drummer had a couple of clams, and there was a clam coming from the violin. And I just wanted to say the word clam, because it's one of those inside-y show business music things.
Show him that you know what you're talking about.
And so he was not happy with the band's performance on that. And I thought they were fine. They just could have been, new band. You're working out the kinks. Yeah, just a little bit tighter and all this stuff. And he goes, hey, buddy, you're pretty good at, you're a musician. I said, well, I do play a pretty mean washboard. And he thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And that's why that whole thing said, hey, can I play with you the next time you came to Bloomington? So there's that.
I love that.
May I tell you one more Bluebird story?
Absolutely. At least one.
So I was playing rugby at IU. And that night, my roommate.
Didn't Mark Cuban play rugby at IU
Mark
too?
Cuban was before my time. I've had the pleasure of. Mark Cuban and I are friends with a lot of same people.
Well, I was going to say, because anytime he comes into town, it's for rugby stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, most of the time he is. Sometimes he has IU stuff. And I just saw Mark in August.
Are you on a first name basis?
I call him Disco. His rugby nickname is Disco.
Okay, all right.
He knows who I am. He doesn't know my name, but he knows who I am because he knows that because unfortunately I've been to a lot of the funerals.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because some of his teammates have passed, and I was one of his best friends was one of my best friends, and there's some other things that. So I see him from time to time, and I see him at the Old Boys. Our reunions are called the Old Boys, and we had our 60th at the Elks Lodge, and so he was there for that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he comes into Bloomington, invariably I run into him because he comes in the restaurant or he's out and about, and I've talked to him many, many, many times. He's a good guy, but.
Anyway, sorry, you were playing rugby.
I'm playing rugby at IU, and my roommate at the time was the photographer for the Arbutus, which is the yearbook at IU, and he said, hey, Leo, it's a Thursday. And he's like, hey, Leo, there's something big going on at the Bluebird this night, and you really should be there. And I said, okay. That night also, a guy I knew, played rugby with, Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead were playing on Letterman that night. So he was going to have a keg of beer and celebrate that whole thing. And I didn't want to go because I just, hey, man, my buddy's roommate, also a rugby guy, said, hey, there's something going on at the Bluebird that night, pretty special. So I said that I wasn't going to this guy's party, and he cried at rugby practice. And everyone hated me because I made a rugby guy cry at practice. And I know I was being kind of hard on him, and I had to go because this guy was crying about it, and I felt terrible. So I ended up. So then we get the phone call. Bob Dylan is playing at the Bluebird that night with Lou Reed and John Prine. And now I'm mad. I'm like, really? I should. And anyways, we ended up hightailing to the Bluebird. We just missed Prine and Lou Reed. I'm sorry, just missed Lou Reed and Mellencamp. And
wait, Mellencamp?
So sorry. It wasn't Dylan. Sorry, it was Mellencamp and Lou Reed jumped on stage because they were doing stuff for Live Aid.
Yeah, and then so Prine was last.
And Prine was last. So I got to see the Prine thing, but I didn't know who John Prine was at the time. Yeah, I thought he was terrific. And then afterwards, he's hanging out by the bar, and I'm doing shots with him that night. He was a great guy. I really liked that I got to meet John.
But Prine. You were going to try to see Mellencamp.
Well, because Mellencamp and Lou Reed, because I was like, holy crap. And I didn't know that Prine was going to be part of that whole mix.
Well, at least you still got to get over there and still experience some of the night.
I was there from probably considered the most famous night in the history of the Bluebird.
Really?
That
Mellencamp
and Lou Reed jumped on stage and played at the Bluebird.
That's super cool, man. And obviously that's back in your college days before you were ever
so that was,
there.
86, 87, something like that, I still regret that but what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, it's
As
not your.
my
It's not
dad
your,
said, you can't do everything.
yeah, it's not your fault that dude was having a shitty day and just decided to cry over just you not coming to his
Not
party.
coming to,
It sounds like he was working through some other stuff too. There's some underlying things.
I'm not gonna. He just, whatever.
Yeah. Did you treat him differently after that? Because you
I held a grudge.
Yeah,
Of course, I held a
he was,
grudge.
yeah.
Because
Like, Jordan, I'm human,
dude,
man.
You're 0 for 2 for me, right? You're definitely 0 for 2. All right.
Yeah.
But he's a wonderful person and he has a wonderful wife. But notice I didn't mention his name on the podcast.
Yeah, probably good.
Okay.
You don't want to throw him under the bus for ruining.
No,
the
he's
best,
still
for making you miss the best night ever at the
yeah,
Bluebird.
the last night. But he's still a good egg, man. And
There you go.
I get to, he still comes into Bloomington every now and again. And, hey guys.
I won't say his name, but I'll make fun of his voice.
Yeah, well, he can't help it. He's a stiff. He's a good guy, but he can't help it that he's a stiff. He just can't help it. It's just part of his. I can't take denatured alcohol and make it good. Right?
I want to. Can we just have Leo back and it's just him shit talking people? But I can't say their name, but they're really.
I think that's diplomatic. Isn't that okay?
Yeah,
I think that's okay.
No, I'm enjoying it. Well, let's hop in the time machine back to when you're working at the Bird.
So the Bluebird was just, as they call it, the blurred, the blur.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah,
it's good. I definitely had some blurred nights there back in mine.
It's a classic place. It used to be a horse stable.
Really?
It was the downtown horse stable where all the people would make their deliveries on their wagons. That's where because all those pictures in the back with Toots and all those people, those were the various stalls that you would have where they would put the horses. So they used to be, before they remodeled and took a bunch of stuff out, there was a lot more bars in there, metal bars where you'd be able to direct the horses. It was a lot more obvious back then.
I never knew that.
Younger.
I never knew that history. Yeah.
It's a historic landmark. It can't be torn down.
I just always figured it was because of the Bird. I didn't realize that's why it was a historic landmark.
That building's 140, 150 years old.
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah. So it was while you were at the Bird that you won that national drink contest.
Won the Food Network National Drink Contest.
How did that start? What happened?
I ended up booking a show. We did a tribute night to the band, the actual band. Bob Dylan's the tribute, Bob Dylan and the band.
Okay.
And so we did a tribute show to them as a fundraiser. And I put together, and it just was a tremendous success. And this guy was named Brian, and Brian Flip Flop Haney, still a good friend. He ended up,
Did he always change his positions on things?
No, he
or just
ended up
wear flip flops all the time?
No, that's good though, Jordan. He ended up showing up to work the first day as security wearing sandals at the Bluebird.
Yeah, oh man.
And I was like, what are you? And I didn't call him sandals. I called him flip flops because it's a funnier thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And he was like, those aren't flip flops. Those are sandals. I said, sure, whatever. I might start having to call you flip flop. And Brent Martera at the time was the bar manager, comes around the corner, overhears this conversation, looks down and goes, dude, why are you wearing flip-flops? Because he got exactly, he knew what I was doing.
Yeah, he picked up on
and
the
he
cues.
goes, they're not flip-flops, they're
sandals. Nothing.
Now he's all like,
yeah.
because he's a smaller guy and he's really self-conscious about everything.
Well, yeah, nothing's better when you start just kind of tag teaming and they're just hopelessly defending it.
And we're just teasing him. You're just giving him the beeswax, right?
I've been on the bad end of that too.
Yeah, we're just, we're part. So he ended up like, I might have to. So he goes back and he literally goes to the schedule and writes the name Flip Flop on the schedule instead of his real name.
Yeah, it's like
I'm working with him for months. I don't even know what his real name is because I just met him as Brian. So he's been called, everyone calls him Flip Flop.
And he's just hating it.
Well, he said it was the greatest nickname he ever got in his life because he was smaller, he got all these awful nicknames.
So he's happy that it's nothing against.
He used to have terrible names. So he was in a band called, I think, Long Distance Affair.
Well, actually,
they were a cover band. They would do they were a hippie kind
of. I like that name a lot.
They were they were all these guys from South Bend. They all grew up together. I really liked the band a lot. They just they weren't that popular. They just couldn't get over that.
Right.
Which is a shame because they were terrific. Some of the other bands that were going through there, I was like, these guys were interesting. They did a lot of really interesting instrumentals. They would do a lot of offbeat covers. I just thought they were I really enjoyed them. So after we did this tribute to the band, which we just crushed. I just crushed it.
But BT dubs.
Yeah. And so he was like, hey man, I'm looking for doing something because I got this degree, but I don't want to do this. I want to go more media. And I'm looking for material because I filmed a bunch of little 5 race stuff that I'm putting together. But if you ever have a project in mind that I'd like to work with you again, because, we work together so well on this thing. And I said, okay, I'll consider it. And so I saw the ad on TV about the Food Network Ultimate Drink Contest Showdown.
Is this mid 2000s?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So it was the Guy Fieri thing, and I just said, okay. So I said, Brian, let's do this. I need a video, I need the equipment, I need the lighting, I need the editor, and all this stuff. And so we filmed it at Nick's because the lighting at the Bluebird just wasn't going to work, and we used the back bar at Nick's. And Grags and Susan, those guys were so gracious to let me go back there and help them use, because I liked that little back room. The little back room of the Nick's was perfect. And we read the rules. We made sure that you couldn't say, like, show the Budweiser sign or any of that stuff. You had to because if you did, you weren't going to win, because they'd have to pay for sponsorship and all this stuff. And they were like, no. So I said, make sure we crop out all this stuff. It can imply, like, you could show the lower half of the Budweiser sign, but you can't show the whole Budweiser sign. It's just
makes sense.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and it's a cold January day. And I said, I gave him a little pep talk. Let's go in there and win this thing. Because all those people that said I couldn't do it and gave you a hard time for being short and all this stuff, I'm just sick of it. Let's go in and prove the world wrong that we can win this thing. We go in, almost the first person we run into, you're not going to win. And we looked and we laughed our tails off on that. Like, we just went,
what
see,
I tell you?
this is exactly what you and I have been dealing with all the time. So we ended up, we won.
So what was the drink?
So it was called the vanilla lemon cookie. So as a bartender, I'm always on the lookout at that time for new flavors. So I would go up and down the aisles of various places, soft drinks, drink mix, all that stuff. Always looking for unusual combinations of flavors to see if I can make them into a drink, So I came across this bottled beverage called Old Fashioned Vanilla Lemonade. And I said, well, I never heard of this beverage before, and vanilla and lemon. I like vanilla and lemon in cakes and stuff. I said, why not make it for a drink? So that night, it was snowing, and the night I invented it, there was a girl I knew, her sister was in a reggae band, and nobody showed up that night. So this girl was like, well, I want you to make a drink, but I don't like alcohol, and da-da-da-da-da. I said, well, I have this idea for this thing, and I want, see if it... And so I made it, and she looks at me, and she drinks it, and she just looks at me for the longest time. And I said, well, if it's awful, you're not going to hurt my feelings. She goes, this is the greatest drink I've ever had in my life. I said, come on. I did. You did. And I said, no. So I tried it, and I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, this is the greatest drink I've ever had.
Wow, this is the greatest drink I've ever had as well. So when we were filming this, we filmed 2 drinks. One was that, and the other one's called the Lion's Tail or something. So there was like a Southern Comfort sour Sprite kind of thing with lemon. Very, very, very tasty.
Was that Flip Flop's creation?
No, that was both were mine.
Oh, both were you? Okay.
Both were mine. Well, Flip Flop was a door person, security guy.
But you filmed it as like 2 separate submissions?
We filmed it 2 separate submissions, but Flip Flop really was like the vanilla lemon cookies, the drink. That's the drink. Right. That's the drink. That's the drink. That's the drink. So then it was I'm trying to remember what band was playing that night. It was one of these like teenage guys. I don't remember his name, Corey or something like that.
Classic Corey.
Yeah. So Corey Chase, or I don't know. Anyways,
sounds right.
So he's playing that night, and the next day they're supposed to announce the 10 finalists. And I remember talking to this girl. I'm like, I just want to be in the top 10. I don't care if I win. I was really choked up.
So what was that submission process? Like you just like that you saw the ad, you sent it in,
edit it, and then we had to send.
Did you have to pay anything or
no? It was free.
Okay.
So for this contest, there was people that have an appetizer, there would be a burger, there would be a dessert, there would be a main, and a cocktail.
Okay. So sorry, back to where you're at. You just want to be in the top 10.
I just want to be in the top 10. As long as I'm in the top 10 after thousands of submissions, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to be in the top.
Yeah, that's an achievement.
Just for the bragging rights. Just for the bragging rights.
Absolutely.
So I wake up the next day and I go to the thing, and they were supposed to post 10. Well, there weren't 10 posted. There was me and 2 other people. And I looked at their videos and I went, they're not going to beat me, because I had production values. Not only did I have it filmed at a bar, but I had the lighting, I had the editing, I had the close-ups. One guy had filmed it on some rickety card table.
Yeah.
And the lighting was not good. And the other woman filmed in their living room, and all she talked about was Paula Deen before the whole Paula Deen thing hit the fan.
And meanwhile, you have Green Hat Media doing yours.
And I had,
so.
you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I had, who, by the way, ended up getting a media job in Chicago
out of that
whole thing. And that's what he's doing for a living.
I love that.
He used that as that thing. He goes,
Flip-flop?
Flip-flop. Brian ended up like, that was the one that was the deciding factor.
Does Flip-flop ever come back to town? I want to see and meet Flip-flop in the flesh.
I will probably reach out to him tonight to say, hey, by the way, Brian.
Yeah, tell him when the episode comes out.
I will,
send it to him.
He's a good egg.
Like we talked to you about half the time.
Married and happy. I'm really happy for him.
That's great.
I'm trying to remember the media company, but they do national huge ads.
Awesome.
Huge things that you would recognize.
So what'd you win?
So we ended up winning the thing, and they sent us to Vegas. But my father was really upset because everyone else for the burger and others, they got like 20, 25 grand. Everyone thought I got 25 grand. I got a $2,000 prize package, which meant flight, hotel. They put us up at the Orleans, and they gave us $200 worth of food credit. So my dad's like, that's not fair. Everyone got 25,000. Why didn't you get 25,000? I said, that wasn't what the price was, Dad.
Yeah,
I got what they gave us a $2,000, no folding cash, no anything.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say $200 spending, and then it's like
no $200 food credit. No folding cash whatsoever, none. And I was just in Vegas 2 weeks ago, friends, and let me tell you, you need folding cash.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Well, you went to Vegas to go on another guy's like food thing. I was supposed to do a food podcast with somebody for YouTube, and I got blown off, and he ended up going to, there's a very famous dim sum restaurant there called Yum Cha. Yeah, because we had talked about it. You told me you were going to show it to him.
I'm not going to mention the person's name because he really let me down. So he ended up doing the food.
But this guy's a real piece.
Yeah. So he ended up doing the food podcast, and I was like, really, dude?
Did he go to your dim sum place? You know what I'm going to do?
I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to unsubscribe to you.
That'll teach him.
I taught him hard.
So
he ended up doing the show.
Reeling from
he ended up doing the show. And
was that at the dim sum place?
At the dim sum place.
At the one you recommended.
Mm-hmm. But a friend of mine, can I tell you another story?
No.
All right. So
of course.
A friend of mine used to curate. And I'll tell my friend William about it, and I'll tell my friend Graham. So my friend Graham used to be an art curator for prison artwork at University of Michigan.
Like made by prisoners or
made by prisoners? Made by prisoners, all right? So he did this for years and years and years. And so he met this young man in the joint in Detroit who was an artist. And he got into some trouble in his younger years, and my friend Graham really liked his artwork and ended up using it in some pieces. His name's William, and a very nice guy. And so when he found out I was going to be in Vegas, Graham's like, hey, there's somebody I want you to meet named William. I said, okay. So I'm staying at the Gold Nugget. I will say I love the Gold Nugget. If there any Gold Nugget people out there, you love the Gold Nugget. Can't wait to come back.
They comp you a breakfast buffet to mention
something. Chick-fil-A, something.
There you go.
So Graham's like, hey, I want you to hang out with my friend William. I said, of course, any friend of yours is a friend of mine.
Right.
So he picks me up at the Gold Nugget, and I say, hey, there's this dim sum restaurant I want to take you to. He goes, I've never had dim sum in my life. So we go there. It's amazing. It's just because you talked about you like dim sum as well.
But I wasn't happy with the one.
Yeah, I know. Let's not. Yeah. So we went there, and we had the radish cake, we had the shrimp thing, we had the barbecue bun, we had the baked pastry, all the stuff. Sesame red bean paste balls. It was unbelievable. It was just a joy. He'd never had hot and sour soup before.
That's a treat to introduce.
So he really, because he'd spent from he was 17 years old till his, I don't know what age, in jail. And so he never did these things. He never had this. He had Chinese food, but he never had like dim sum. He never had that whole thing.
Was this your most recent trip, or is this?
Yeah, this was 2 weeks ago. No, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so you had already been to this dim sum place.
No, I'd never been to it, but I'd heard about it. I heard it was the highest.
And that's why you had recommended.
Yeah,
okay,
because,
I got you.
Before I go to Vegas, I do a lot of homework about, I try to find more offbeat. I like to go to Chinatown. I like to, I like Peruvian food. I go to this Peru chicken. I like to find.
You want to make the most out of your trip and not just go to tourist traps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if those places are fine, they're just not my bag. So we go to the dim sum, and we just have the nicest meal. The owner comes over, and we have a ton of laughs.
Was the guy that blew you off and they're recording his food podcast?
No, he
at the
was.
same time?
He is dead to me. I unsubscribed to him. So then afterwards, I said, "Hey, you want to go play pinball? I got a roll of quarters for you and a roll of quarters." He had never played pinball in his life. So Vegas has this place called the Pinball Hall of Fame. You've got 800 machines in there.
Jeez.
The owner has every Gottlieb pinball machine ever made. I think they make the worst machines, but in the 50s and 60s, they were good. But the 80s and 90s, their machines are just trash. So yeah, I did talk smack about that.
How long had this guy been out of prison? Like, because he's living in Vegas.
I think he had family living in Vegas. I think he'd been out less than a year.
Gotcha. Because I was like, man, I never played pinball. I understand dim sum, but
he never really played pinball.
Wow.
So we went there and we had the nicest, because he liked all the graphics.
Yeah.
He just thought it was just a really, really unique experience. And his girlfriend was sick. Now they have there's tons and tons of rare and unique machines there at the Pinball Hall of Fame. And if you're ever in Vegas, please I'd find some time to go there.
Spend some
amazing.
Quarters, yeah.
It's very reasonably priced, all volunteer driven. It's a very, very special.
Drop some coin.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. So thank you. So they have a machine. Now, they used to have it at the Brookfield Zoo when I was a kid, and they have one here, but this one's from Disney. And you put money in, and it's a molded machine of plastic. So you would put the money in or wax or plastic, and they have figurines came out of it. So they had a Donald Duck one, and they had a Pluto. So you put the money in, and it extrudes this thing, and a minute later, whatever, pops out this Pluto. It's got to be 8 or 9 inches tall. The Brookfield Zoo had one of like whales, polar
made
bear,
of wax?
grills. In wax or a plastic figure. I think it might have been wax. But
I've seen
it
like the
smelled
penny things.
It smelled kind of plasticky. It had to really because everyone's kind of standing around the whole thing, because people are older and they're like, man, that smell. And William had no idea. So he came out and I paid for it. I mean, I had rolls of quarters with me. What do I care?
Yeah.
I'm on vacation. And he ended up, he gave it to his girlfriend who was sick. He just was like, man, that is so cool. I said, dude, you're such a great guy.
Well, for being kind of screwed over, sounds like you had an amazing trip, though.
William did get screwed over.
No, well, I didn't know his story, but I'm saying for you from the food podcast. It sounds like
I
the
got
trip
screwed
was
over by
still-
that guy, but I ended
Not
up
to compare that to him getting screwed over, yeah.
William got screwed over by the legal system. And so then we had the great time. He goes, hey, is there anything else you'd like to? I said, well, I'd like to go to Taco El Gordo, which there's a taco show called the Taco Chronicles on Netflix. Jordan, have we talked about this?
Yeah, no, we haven't talked about it, but I've seen it. Yes.
So they talk about Taco El Gordo in the Taco Chronicles.
Is that?
It's in San Diego, but they have 2 of them in Vegas.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's just an amazing taco.
Is that the one that has that owner that's just very like
I've never met
puts on
the
Okay.
I've never met the
And I'd assume that he would be at the one in San Diego anyway.
Probably.
But,
I've never met the owner. I would love to meet the owner because it's just tacos that you just weep over. I get the El Pastor where they have the pineapple stuck in the spit and then the pineapple above.
I'm thinking, and it's a massive spit. Right?
Yeah. It's like almost like a gyro thing. Like
yeah. I think this is the one I'm thinking of. That's a great one. That's one of those Netflix you can just throw on and just salivate the whole time.
It's amazing.
And it's great food and characters. It's everything we love.
Exactly. So I ended up getting a few of those to go for dinner that night, and I was just like, I was so grateful.
Yeah. Was that the last night?
No, that was my first day.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I'd gone out earlier that night with a friend of mine, and we had a few drinks, and I was so excited about going to Vegas. I didn't sleep at all that night. So I was up the whole time, and I was like, hey.
Yeah, usually if people are up all night in Vegas, it's a little more than excitement.
No, I wasn't. It was nothing. I just was,
No, I'm not trying to infer you were.
I wasn't implying that you were implying anything. It just was, I was so excited about spending time with this friend of mine, and then also, going to Vegas. I mean, it's exciting
Vegas
because my buddy picked me up to take me to the airport at like 4 a.m.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like an awesome trip. While we still have some time with you, I want to get from Bluebird to where you're at now at Farm.
So the Bluebird, I ended up leaving and then working for a plumber friend of mine who's no longer around, the great George. And then from there, I wasn't making enough money, nothing, So then I took a job at IU cooking because I needed the insurance. And I did that for a while. Then I ended up working for a man. I started going back into restaurant management again. and that didn't work out. Well, that was fine. So then I went to this terrible cluster truck place.
Oh, you worked for Cluster Truck?
That was horrible.
I haven't thought about Garrett, do you know about Cluster Truck?
You know, I remember the name, but I don't think I had them. I don't remember the concept.
I will talk smack about these.
Yeah,
people.
no,
Yeah.
and let's.
It was like a special kind of concept, right?
Yeah, well,
it was a unique.
It was like pretty much before ghost kitchens weren't really a thing yet, at least in Indiana, and had been in. It was you couldn't go there. It was delivery only. They had some good, like Lovey and I and we full blown fat kid over a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
and we got so excited over Cluster Truck.
They really did.
And they had some great food. Guy I used to work with at Charlie's ended up working for them, and then they just kind of puttered out. It was kind of odd, but yeah, what was your experience like with them?
Well, they put me on fry, and it's the hardest station because they sell so many tater tots.
It's almost the whole menu's fried.
Yeah, and so they were racist. Like, we can take a Mexican gentleman up in India and he can do this day. I'm like, what does that mean?
Right. Well, yeah. Why are you saying that? What? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like I'm working 3 or 4 hours and I'm like taking a drink of water and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean what am I doing?
So you were getting micromanaged.
It was just impossible. You couldn't keep up. Oh, I was there for about, 2 or 3 months, and I'm trying to gut it out.
Did you know you were going to be put on fry when you got on there?
No, of course not.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, this is a 2-person station.
And
everyone's over at the burger and doing the salad. I'm not getting any help.
Right.
Nobody's just like, well, I have my own responsibility. I'm like, no wonder this is a revolving door.
Right.
This station is impossible.
Yeah, but for one person.
So
you ended up dipping out of there.
I ended up dipping out, and then I ended up dropping off the application to the farm, and I knew my friend Wes, who Wes, obviously, because he's involved with you guys for a while, and my good friend Doug Spradley is the bar manager.
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and it was a Saturday night, and I got a call from my good friend Ali, but at that time I didn't know Ali, so Robbie, and he said, hey, I'd like to talk to you the next day. And I said, okay. And I came in. And after about 2.5 hours of Ali talking, which is fine,
hey,
because he just wanted to say, hey, I want this, I this, I expect this, these are your responsibilities.
Well, and the more the interviewer talks, the less chance you have to shoot yourself in the foot.
I ended up saying 3 things.
Is that a bad way of looking at it?
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I just kept my mouth shut. And okay. And he said, all right. And then the next day or so that Chef Orr came in and said, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. And he talked to me for about an hour. And once again, these are responsibilities. This is where we're coming from. This is what we expect out of you. I said, okay. And I always said they took a chance on me and I took a chance on them. And I've been there for almost 6 years.
Wow. I love that. And so you were hired on as a front house manager? As
front house manager. Because, sometimes they promote within. I was one of the only outside managers that I can recall that came from,
sometimes,
but they like, you know what I mean? But the first month, as I just keep my mouth shut. Watch.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times you want to promote from within, but every now and then you'll have a situation that just makes sense to bring in a certain qualified candidate, or you don't necessarily have that candidate in house for what you're looking for. And I'm glad that worked out for them. Yeah, because I knew you had been there for a while. I didn't know 6 years is quite some time.
It'll be 6 years this June or something like that, which is about 5 months away.
I love it.
And it's I'm very, very proud to work there. Chef Orr is a great person, a talented chef. And I love the product, and Ali's a gem, and Doug and Chantel and Katie and all the crew. I mean, and we have a new guy, Jess, and it's just really been. And
Jess is the new chef, right?
Yeah. Didn't you interview him?
No, but we've talked. I've chatted with him.
Boy, he's got some interesting stories too. He's been around.
Well, I've heard he's worked in 28 restaurants or something. It's a really, really high number.
He's legit.
He's a really interesting guy. In the short conversations I've had with him, and he lives right by the Moose, so he'll pop in there and we'll get a chat in there.
He really. He's going to have a very interesting. He's going to be a very interesting.
I've heard he's finally been able to kind of put some of his touch on things.
Yeah, and he has, and he's really, really. I'm really grateful for.
We'll have to go in there.
Everything he's done.
Try it out, Garrett.
Because people drive from all over the state for our biscuits and our chili garlic fries and our pizza and Doug's drinks.
Man, the 4th gen biscuits is out there.
4th gen Great Grandma Orr. They're legit.
So good,
amazing. And our fry. I mean, the burger. I mean, it's just. because we try to locally source as much as we can.
Right.
And our bourbon selection's insane. And Doug's nationally recognized, one of the best
Oh, I
bartenders
know.
in America.
Yeah, he was the first, Doug, he was the second episode released, but the first episode we recorded of No Dishes.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's such just a good person, but also just, he's so knowledgeable about
vast.
so many. Yeah.
Even saying vast is almost an understatement.
Yeah.
in my
No,
opinion.
it's.
And Chantel's been around the block for a long time doing all kinds of things. And Ali's just a gem. He's been there for 12 years and with his background managing grocery stores. And he's just a wonderful, it's just, I'm very proud to be there. And I've met so many famous people. Like, so one time Meg Ryan's in there and it was a few days before Christmas. And I'm like, well, that's Meg Ryan. And I could send over a dessert or a fry or, but I'm like, so I ended up getting a jar. We have our own product. We have a black raspberry jam and a strawberry rhubarb, and we make our own mustard. We have ketchup. And
Right.
we have peach marmalade and apple butter.
And you can all buy that right in the entrance, along with like chefty or
special seasonings
cookbooks and stuff. Yeah.
barbecue sauce. All this. It's all very, very good. And I'm not saying that it's terrific.
Yeah.
Our Chipotle ketchup is amazing.
I've had,
it's amazingly good. So Meg Ryan's there, and we had one jar of black raspberry jam in the basement. And I went downstairs, and I put in a bag, and I put a little sticker, to Meg from Leo. And as she's walking out the door, I said, Miss Ryan, Merry Christmas. And I gave her my recipe for peanut butter and jelly, which is wheat bread, cream cheese, our black raspberry jam, and then crunchy peanut butter. Is it good on bagels? It's good on everything.
You betcha.
But I didn't call her Meg because I don't know her. I put on the sticker, of course, because I'm not going to. But she was nice. Another night, Arsenio Hall sitting on the couch.
I was going to bring him up. I knew.
Arsenio Hall was sitting on the couch, and this table was these gals at table 30. They're like, just come here. I said, is that Arsenio Hall? I said, I thought it was, but why would Arsenio Hall be at the farm? Because he's not performing at the Comedy Attic.
Right.
I was like, it just didn't make any sense. So I said, girls, I'll go. And I walked over, and it was him immediately. I said, Mr. Hall, welcome to farm. I said, sir, my name's Leo. I'm cook. I'm the front of the house manager, but floor manager. But no, front of the house.
Yeah.
So I said, Mr. Hall, these ladies over here are huge fans. Would you please just, if you're not too busy, could you go over there, sir, and just say a little something to him? It would mean so much. He was so gracious. He came over and just talked them all up, posed for pictures. One of the girls was having a birthday. It was just such a great guy.
Well, it's one thing to come over and be like, but for him to get up, go to them,
he was
and just be cool with it. That's amazing. Yeah.
Class act all the way. But I've met George Takei Sulu from Star Trek. I've met all the people that come in the Comedy Attic. Maria Bamford's going to be in town here next month. She comes in. Michael Ian Black came in. Jim Kelly, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, came in.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, Mr. Mellencamp comes in from time to time. Coach Woodson comes in with his lovely wife and his daughters. You just never know. Meryl Streep's eating in there. It's just you never know who's going to be in there at any given time. It makes it exciting. It's an exciting place. It's an exciting dynamic. And it's not some cookie cutter like your place. It's not some cookie cutter ice cream like interesting. There's some interesting things there that people go, wow, the depth of flavor. It's not, you don't expect.
Right. For a second, I was like, are you calling this cookie cutter?
No,
It's not a cookie cutter place like Chocolate Mousse.
No, Chocolate Mousse isn't a cookie cutter place.
It's like, whoa, dude.
No.
Yeah.
Chocolate Mousse is not they do serve an ice cream cookie sandwich, which I recommend all the time to people.
It's like
Ask anybody.
Not some cookie cutter bullshit like what you do.
Guess when my staff are there for a couple of months, and ask anybody.
Yeah.
I usually buy them, and you've sold them many times.
Absolutely.
I go buy them Chocolate Mousse gift cards so they can come in because it's my attaboy, attagirl. Thank you for sticking this out. I know sometimes this job is challenging.
And we appreciate it.
And I say, here's that $5 because I want you to go.
I knew what you meant. It was,
but your ice cream.
It took me a second.
But your ice cream has a depth of flavor. You use great ingredient. It's
14% butter fat.
Yeah, it's tasty. It's usually one of my first dates. Hey, let's go to Chocolate Mousse.
I love it. Yeah.
Oh my
Bring
God.
man, I'll wing man.
Yeah.
Like this guy? Man, let me tell you about this guy.
It does the worst podcast ever. I like that. You know what I mean? That you run a place that's like, really does a great job.
Well, you can take pride in it. It makes your job.
Absolutely.
You can't stay at a place for 6 years, almost 9 years, if you if you're not proud of what you're serving.
Absolutely.
You can max out in about 2 years doing that before you're like, I need to move on.
Like Applebee's. I wasn't proud of what I was serving, but I love the money and I love what I drink.
Yeah,
but that's one of the reasons why I love it. I didn't believe in the food.
There's other variables
it's just not my
that'll keep
style.
you going.
It just wasn't my style of food.
Right.
Other people love it. Great. It's just that's fine. It's just not what I want to do. It's just not, it's fine. It just wasn't for me.
The last thing I wanted to cover was, and I should have done more research on this, was you did a children's book, or you did a children's book reading radio show?
So I've been doing children's television for 8 years at WTIU, working with Eric Bolstridge and Jake Kincaid. I filmed a pilot that I was trying to sell to the vice president of PBS. Actually looked at it, and she said, "Great idea, good songs. Your puppets stink." And I said, "Well, I don't have Jim Henson, making my puppets. I had a woman from the bowling alley made our puppets, who makes wedding dresses."
Whoa, nothing. Whoa,
no,
let's not hate on people from the bowling alley.
No, I love the bowling. No, I love Ron, love the crew. No, it's not that. No, I don't have Jim Henson.
Yeah.
And the lighting was a little bit off, and I said, "Lady, we filmed in the basement of my church. I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get this whole thing." The guy that does the music for the Wildcrats and the Doodle Bops saw it. He thinks it's just phenomenal. I'm still in the process of selling it. I'm going to be talking to somebody here very soon about that again. She thinks it's a very good idea. But at Sesame Street Meets the Food Network, it's actually teaching kids how to cook and hygiene. There's a lot more than, because as you know, you took a safe serve test today. There's more than food than just serving up food. There's,
right, absolutely.
There's temps and cleanliness and all kinds of things. Anyways,
for the record, I did know it before today. I was renewing. It wasn't. It's like, as you learned for the first time today, so you have to wash your hands.
Yeah, washing my. So I wrote a wash your hands song that's going to be in every episode.
I'm here for it.
Anyways, so ick. Dirty hands will make you sick. Soap. Wash your hands. Don't be a dope. Dry. Now it's time to tell the sink goodbye. Neat. Your hands are clean, so now let's eat.
I'm ready to eat.
Yeah,
my hands are clean.
We got trail mix. So I ended up showing it to the people at the station, and they're like, "Well, this is really good." I said, "Okay, well, kind of like, hey,
yeah," and
nothing happened. So then I was taking a media class with Dr. Robert Foster, I think is his last name. Anyways, I was working at IU at the time, so I could sit in on class and get a freebie, and I just wanted to know what was going on in media that day, and I said, "Can I talk to you after class?" Because I've been on WGN Radio. I co-hosted the Jenny Jones show, which we didn't get into today, which is fine. I won the Food Network thing. I've done this. I said, I really, I need some help. Do you know anybody you could help me with? He goes, "Well, show up to my office hour. We'll talk." So I showed up 10 minutes early, because in show business, it's always good to be early. I learned that a long time ago. So I met the chair of the department that day and said, "Hey, do you know Jay Kincaid?" I said, "Jay Kincaid? Who's that?" "Oh, Jay works at NBC. He does stuff for CBS. He's won Emmys. He does the Olympics. And here's Jay's email. You get a hold of Jay. You said I talked to him and we'll help you out." I said, "What? Really?" Of course, I'm a nervous wreck. And
right.
I sent Jay an email, and we meet the next day at a coffee place. And even though Jay was going on vacation with his family to Michigan later that day, he found time for me that morning to meet with me.
That's great.
And I was
love that.
blown away at the kindness of Jay's gesture for finding time for me. So I brought my DVD of my Cookies Diner thing and then another concept thing of a TV show treatment. And he keeps on back and forth and keeps on reading the treatment and thinking about this. And he goes, "You really have great ideas, don't you?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to run out of ideas anytime soon." He goes, "Leo, if I asked you to do a show about dinosaurs and Indiana history, what would you say to that?" And I just sat back in my chair and went, "How many do you want?" And he goes, "Good answer." He said, "We want you to be involved with the Friday Zone. We want you to do something." I said, "Okay, sure, whatever you want." And that kind of got that whole thing rolling. And I've done over 125 spots for him.
And what's that on?
So it's on WTIU, but it airs in Louisville, it airs in Fort Wayne, Indy, South Bend, Northern Indiana, Evansville,
cool.
And in all the Riley's Children's Hospitals.
Wow.
So I was part of the Friday Zone, and Eric Bolstridge, who also directs and edits and works really closely with me. He ends up he puts a lot of this stuff together for me, and he kind of gets me. And so Eric and I have done a bunch of stuff together, and Jay and I've done, like I said, I've done over 125 spots for the Friday. So
that's so cool.
It's a very gratifying experience. I really enjoy it, and it's part of my career. And there's some other things that are building right now that I'm not really at liberty to say, but I've got some very exciting something in the works that I'll talk about hopefully in the near future. But right now, I'm not really supposed to talk about. But we're talking a national basis.
Now we're
life's
talking.
about to change.
Awesome, man. Well, hopefully we circle back soon and talk about it.
I'd love to.
Between the kids show, your work with Life Designs, all your restaurant experience. You're a character, man. You've got so many cool stories. I'm so grateful that we got to have you on.
I'm thrilled to be here, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me here. I really, really appreciate you finding the time, and it's been a great experience.
Yeah.
And let's do this again real soon.
100%. We'll do it over some biscuits next time.
Good one.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you all.
Thanks for joining us in the latest episode of the No Dishes podcast. Do you like what you heard? Be sure to write a review, rate us, subscribe, like, whatever it is that you do to show your support. We really appreciate it. Until next time, be sure to keep those hands dry. This episode of the No Dishes podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana. Season 4 of the No Dishes podcast is brought to you by Visit Bloomington.com. Visit Bloomington.com is the best resource for restaurants and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at visitbloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.